I'll go ahead and just get started. We're also live in our Facebook group, so if you're joining us from there, hello as well. Thank you for joining us. I see some new faces, I see some familiar ones. So if you're joining our town hall for the first time, welcome. We create these every week to meet up and just create a space for Montessori leaders to come together and have the space to communicate with one another, talk about important topics, and just find support, because we know that it can get a little bit lonely at the top, and it's not always easy to talk to other members of your staff. It's sometimes even a nice space to just connect and talk casually. This week, we're having kind of an open forum discussion. We've put together a presentation for you guys to kind of talk about today's topic, which is building alumni communities. This was requested by one of our members. And we just thought, you know what, I think it's a great topic of conversation, especially now that technology really allows so many different ways for us to build communities with our alumni, so we can kind of still have a connection with them beyond their years at our school. So if you notice that you're muted, feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions, or also drop any questions in the chat. Because this is an open forum, towards the end, we'll have plenty of time for discussion. I'd love to hear your ideas and strategies for building alumni communities. So just keep that in mind, that this will be kind of an open discussion towards the end. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just kind of cover the topic and share some strategies with you all. All right. All right, so here we have building a lasting alumni community. So just another introduction for us. If you're not familiar with Montessori Thrive, we're basically an online members website for Montessori administrators and leaders. We have a whole resource collection where we exchange and create resources amongst Montessori schools, so that you can market your school, and just support your school and communicate with parents effectively. And we also support with parent education. So welcome if you're not familiar with us. Just an initial thought when it comes to communities in general. Just something I want to start this presentation off with. What is a positive community? Positive experiences with communities allow individuals to feel more connected to their environment and the people in it. Further, the connection that comes with being in a community can act as a support system for members when they require encouragement or help. This is just something I want everyone to keep in mind when it comes to building alumni communities. You really want it to be a positive experience, and you want it to be a valuable experience for those students. Even though they may not be with your school anymore, they're still going on an academic journey beyond the classroom. They may be going off to college or to a public school system after finishing a primary or elementary program with you. So just think about, what would you like to envision when it comes to your community of students beyond their years at your school? So what are the real benefits of building alumni communities? Let's talk about that. First of all, and this is just the biggest advantage for you as a school, is you create a pool for powerful testimonials. Ultimately, nothing is going to sell Montessori more than the stories of Montessorians and students. People love hearing the stories of people who went to Montessori schools and went on to be successful or carried their lessons throughout their life. When you create a way to stay in touch with your students beyond their years at your school, you can follow their experiences and accomplishments, and you can certainly take a little bit of credit for helping them with the lessons that they've carried through life. And it's so nice to see where life takes them beyond their school years. It can be really powerful and impactful to get a testimonial from students who go on to accomplish great things, or they get into a great university, or they go on to advocate for their communities and do volunteer work, which is very common in the Montessori space. This will be huge for marketing and just tying together your mission. And this is just coming from a marketing perspective. It's just great to have those student testimonials if you can. Students of Montessori can stay in contact and find support. So this is kind of flipping the page. It's really beneficial for the students themselves to have a support system online, or just in person as well, where they can come together and they know that they can see friends, they have things in common, and who knows, down the future, they may be able to help each other down the line. Communities are built around commonalities. And when someone goes to Montessori, I think there's a lot of things that are just fundamentally the same. They're people who see the world in a unique way. They want to help their communities. They really enjoy service. And that can be something that can really build a bridge. So it's great for those students to be able to stay connected and for those friends to share their journeys beyond their years as students in the classroom. All right, you can also create volunteer opportunities. I think a lot of schools should really consider doing this, especially in the Montessori space. When students go off to different schools or even college, they might be involved in organizations such as Key Club or Eagle Scouts. These are organizations that really encourage people to volunteer, and offering volunteer opportunities in your school can be a great way to keep in touch with students beyond their years with you. It also is super valuable for them. It's a way for them to come back and be able to give back to their school that they loved so much. And students will be so proud to come back to their old school and offer support. So that's just another added benefit. You could inspire the next generation of Montessorians. I think so many people fall in love with Montessori, whether you're a student or you're a parent of Montessori, you really start becoming an advocate for it. You can use the community to inspire this new generation of Montessorians by keeping the community together beyond their years at your school. You can inspire Montessori parents, students to become Montessori parents, guides, leaders. It's just kind of a great recruitment pool because it's people who experience Montessori firsthand, so they already have a love for it. I know for me personally, my first job was at the Montessori that I attended to when I was a child. So it kind of went full circle for me when I started out working when I was a teenager. And so you never know, those people are, they just share the love and the vision of Montessori that you already have as a school. All right, so how can you build a community? Let's talk about how you can actually make these things happen. All right, it's all about creating positive opportunities, and opportunity is the key word here because you really want to create value for the students to be able to come back and give and also receive benefits from your school. First and foremost, harness the power of social media. Specifically for this purpose, Facebook is great because they offer the opportunity to build a Facebook group, which is free to create, really simple to monitor, and you can create guidelines quite easily. And it can be a private space designed with a purpose. Keyword is purpose. Create a space designed for support, inspiration, and connection. So let's talk about that in a little more detail. So some important things to note about Facebook groups and community building in general is you want to have a few key elements here. First and foremost, you want to assign an admin or monitor that you trust and understands the purpose of the group, someone who can constantly check in and make sure that the conversations being had on this group are appropriate and meet the guidelines, and also somebody who you trust and somebody who will just create content and engagement for the group to inspire the group and keep people connected. A great person might be a head teacher that you really love. You could also have a parent volunteer. If you have a PTA, you might have a parent who oversees that. You might even trust a student enough, maybe one who's already graduated, to be some sort of ambassador who will be the admin. That can be up to you. It's just whoever you think will really carry the voice of the group well. Another thing you want to do is you want to create really clear guidelines that help members understand what the group is about and how to conduct themselves in the group. And this is key to any community. You want to make sure that people know what the group is for, what kind of things they are allowed to share and encouraged to share, and how they can conduct themselves. You want to make these guidelines really clear. You don't tolerate any bad language, any inappropriate videos, anything like that. This is simply a place to stay connected and share your successes in your academic career, and beyond your academic career. This is the purpose of the group. You can invite students to join the group at an appropriate time. Obviously, if your students leave you at after their primary program, they probably don't have Facebook accounts and they're not ready yet to join your Facebook group. So make sure you check in with parents as needed. You can create an email list, and I'll talk about this later, how you can automate some systems so you can keep track of people beyond their time at your school, but you want to make sure that you invite them at an appropriate time. This might be a little bit easier if you have upper elementary students or middle school or even adolescent programs. It will probably be easier to invite them directly. But for those younger programs, it might be a little bit more tracking and following up with the parents. A part of just community building is really managing groups by posting inspiring content, conversation starters, school event information, volunteer opportunities. A great example of inspiring content is if you come across a blog of how successful Montessori students have been. There's lots recently in the news just about people who have been successful because of their Montessori education. There's a lot of people who are famous who credit their Montessori education for building that foundation. Those are great examples of inspiring content. Encourage students to share their own accomplishments, whether they volunteered at Habitat for Humanity or at a local charity, or they helped fundraise for a good cause. You can encourage them to share that as well. And then, of course, school event information. If you have a fundraiser that you'd like alumni to come to, post that kind of information. Any volunteer opportunities, perhaps, in the spring, you're going to be having a garden, you're going to start building a garden for your school and you need assistance or volunteers. That's a great opportunity for students to come back. They might be able to get hours filled out if they're in Key Club or Eagle Scouts, and it's just kind of a win for you and a win for them. It's just really great when you have that pool of people. Make sure the group has purpose. Why should members stay? Ask yourself that question. Students, they go on and they have their own lives after their time at your school. So make sure that there's reasons for them to come back, whether it's their really special friends that they've made over their Montessori year, a teacher that they really want to stay in touch with, maybe for future reference or recommendation letters, volunteer opportunities and opportunities to stay connected. And of course, the opportunity to be a student ambassador. All of those are kind of good purposes for people to stay. So make sure that there's value for them. Otherwise, they're just never going to engage in the group and they're just going to forget about it. And lastly is for you yourself as a school, whether it's to your teachers or as a head of school or whoever it may be as a staff member at your school, to always be engaging in the group, whether it's posting weekly. You don't have to post every single day, but posting content there frequently. So it does come up on members' feeds. They are reminded that they're part of this group and they can see news. Otherwise, again, it will just be buried under all of the other things that they have going on. And also realize that students, they go through phases. Some of them might be more engaged than others. It's just about making an effort and just trying to community build. If you post frequently and if you really have a good purpose behind your group, people are much more likely to stay and be engaged. Do you need resources for Facebook groups? We have you covered. If you're a Montessori Thrive member, we actually have a Montessori alumni Facebook group guideline document that you can download and use for your own group. We recommend having a private group and making sure that you only accept past alumni. There might be some weird requests here and there. Just keep the group really focused. And if you have good and cohesive guidelines, it'll help you to have a safe and positive community. Another way that you can stay in touch with alumni beyond their years at your school is to use automations. And this is kind of a weird connection. If you're a Montessorian, you probably aren't keen of spending a lot of time on your computer. And this is actually not about spending a lot of time in your computer. It's about cataloging correctly. Technology can be a huge help when it comes to keeping track. How often do students leave and you just kind of forget you lose their contacts, or their contacts just cease to exist from your records, or you don't have a way to update their contact information if needed. It's great to be able to create digital forms to help past alumni become ambassadors and give testimonials on your website. Now, if you're familiar with a CRM and having automated forms on your website, then you probably know that you can customize forms and create them for a variety of purposes. Perhaps you can create a form to for past alumni to get in touch with you and give you contact information for recommendation letters, for volunteer opportunities. So again, offering them that value, and they're going to give you their updated contact information so that you can reach out to them and build a bridge again and reconnect. You can create a form for students to share their experience at your Montessori school by creating a few simple fields as well. Maybe they're just visiting your website, they're reminiscing, or maybe even they've gone full circle and they're having children of their own and they're looking for a Montessori and they want to maybe share their experience there. You can also use a CRM to help keep track of your families who have finished their time at your school. If you use a CRM already, you're familiar that you can tag families as certain statuses, whether they're current families or prospective families. You can also tag them as maybe ambassador families or student ambassadors if they decide to become that, or past alumni who is still involved in the school. So you can create special tags so you know who to reach out to, what emails to send them to help them stay in touch with the school, to invite them to certain events where you want past alumni to participate in. So all of those are ways that you can kind of automate things to keep things a little bit more simple for you. It's so much easier to do it that way than to keep a bunch of spreadsheets of different contact information that isn't necessarily updated. This way you kind of have a clear system. Then if you decide to send out an email campaign for a fundraiser, and you are really looking for a student ambassador to come and attend, you can send all of your student ambassador contacts a special invitation saying, oh, we really want someone who can speak, give a talk for this teacher who's retiring this year at the fundraiser. We think that would be really special. And you send out an invitation to some special student ambassadors who experienced that teacher's classroom. So those things are just kind of great to have for the future and to keep in touch with your students. Another way is to host socials and reunions. Obviously, it's been more difficult with COVID restrictions to have in-person reunions, but hopefully in the future, we can look forward to having events in person again. And these are really effective. Reunions can be a huge help when it comes to keeping in touch with your Montessori families and students. It's probably one of the most effective ways because nothing really beats face-to-face connections, especially when it might be from a lower elementary class or primary class, and they're meeting up before they go to high school, and everyone has grown so much and developed so much, but they can still remember their roots of in the Montessori classroom. So all of those events are really special. You can create groups around common interests as well. You can create book clubs for different age groups, community work. You can create your own volunteering community. And you can offer volunteer work beyond their years at your school. Reading or art clubs as well are a good excuse to host reunions and events. You can also host mixers for students who are headed to college as a congratulations to them, even if they only attended your elementary program or your primary program. You never know. It might be nice to reconnect and see how far everyone's come. People really enjoy seeing that. It's a great event for collecting stories, filming video testimonials, and allowing students to connect. And using these events to collect testimonials is really great, especially if they're a bit older and you have their permission to film a short video about how Montessori helped you achieve your college dreams, or what inspired you to study this in college. Was it your Montessori experience? So those testimonials can be really impactful for you and your school down the line. Also, it's great to have a process for checking in with families. Whether you're using automated emails or not, it's great to develop some sort of periodic system for checking in with families and students. Remember that once their time with your school is finished, you don't want to check in too often. You don't want to send them a weekly or monthly email. They have their another school to worry about, or they're quite busy. They don't need to focus on every newsletter that your school is sending out. Just check in 2 to 4 times a year and make sure that the information is relevant to past alumni, not current families. Always include an invite for your alumni Facebook group as well in all past alumni emails, because if that student was with you at a primary group and you keep sending the student invite, eventually they're going to get to the age where they have a Facebook and they're able to join those groups for these types of purposes, and they might join later down the line where they can be welcomed. Include value and resources for families. So when you're sending out emails or when you're checking in, always make sure to have some sort of value, whether it's you need, college season is a college application season is approaching. Do you need a recommendation letter from a previous Montessori teacher? Or does your child need volunteering hours to qualify for National Honor Society? We have volunteering opportunities at our school where students can connect with our community and help their school. So always make sure to offer value or resources. Otherwise, people are just going to kind of tune these emails out like spam. Build and update a contact list. CRMs are a huge help for this, as I've mentioned. You want to make sure that you have updated contact information for people, and that eventually you start contacting the students once they've reached a certain age and not necessarily parents. I see a question here in the chat. Heidi, value and resources are the part I've struggled with. These are great suggestions. Yes, and it is a bit tricky. The real key for kind of keeping people engaged in a community long-term is offering them value. Otherwise, they're going to check out and they're going to just seek what else is pulling their attention. So make sure that you create opportunities for them. As a school in general, like I mentioned, offering to provide recommendation letters to these student ambassadors and these are students who would be willing to come and do volunteer work at your school throughout high school years or their adolescent years, if you don't have a program for that and you want them to come back. So just make sure you're creating that value. Also, at a fundraising event, give them kind of a special table where they can have a reunion with their other classmates. It's a fun event for them to connect and catch up and socialize. So by creating those sorts of opportunities for connection, value, resources, you're kind of giving purpose to the email. You're giving purpose, a purpose for them to stay connected with the school. Otherwise, they're going to check out. All right, let's see what else I have here. Oh, this is another great one. Include a packet for staying in touch. So when a family leaves your school, this is maybe something that some schools already have and something that maybe some schools can build for their own communities. Make sure you give them a farewell packet full of ways to stay in touch and how your school can support that child even after they finish their educational career with the school. Say that you offer resources and that you have a space for students, Montessori students, to stay together. And parents are going to love this because a big reason of why Montessori parents choose Montessori is because they love the idea of the focus on the whole child and creating a citizen of the world. And for other students who come from that same background of being a good person and giving back to the community and participating in something bigger than yourself, you already have so much in common with that group. So there's a lot of value for you to offer. Things that you might want to include in this packet for staying in touch. Include who to contact for recommendation letters. This is probably going to be the biggest reason because a lot of universities now ask for several recommendation letters, more than one teacher most of the time. So who to contact, whether it's an office assistant, whether it's the teacher directly, give that information in the packet. Discuss volunteering opportunities at your school for past alumni. A lot of Montessori and Montessori students will, just because of the foundations that were built in the Montessori classroom, will go for the Key Club, will join Eagle Scouts or charitable organizations where they can give back to their community. So make them understand that they always have a place to volunteer, whether it's helping teachers set up their classroom before the year, or just volunteering at an event or fundraiser. There's so many opportunities for you to give those students volunteer hours. And remember that most Montessori schools are not-for-profit, so it's actually not all that difficult to find ways to get certified to offer these students volunteer hours through Key Club. Just talk to the public schools who are connected with Key Club. Name your Facebook group and how it can help students stay connected beyond the classroom. It could be great for students to connect, help each other with college applications down the line, or just to have a friendship group of other Montessorians. So you definitely want to name that and list the benefits of being in this group on a social media platform. And ask students to send a letter to the school when they graduate high school or college. Parents will love this. I think that would be a great way to get testimonials. Kind of frame it as like a time capsule thing, like, oh, or I guess the opposite of a time capsule, like a future time capsule. When you finish high school, we really would love a letter to our school. Give them the address of where they can send it, and tell us how your years in the Montessori classroom helped you achieve either the job that you wanted or going to the college and studying what you wanted to study. I think that's a great way to just get testimonials. You may not get every student to give you a letter, but even 1 or 2 testimonials that are that powerful can be really exciting. You can pull quotes from the letters and put them on your website as testimonials. So those are just kind of exciting, fun ways for you to kind of ask them in a non-pushy way to share their experiences and give testimonials. All right, I'm gonna shift over to ask you guys questions for what has worked for you, and let's discuss. But before we do, I just want to make one final note. Next week on Wednesday, we are starting our virtual parenting series. So for those of you who are Montessori Thrive members, all of your parents will be able to register for these events for free. I know we have some who have already registered and have their parent community involved. We have 4 evenings of learning, 4 different topics. We've tried to cover a variety of age groups. Next Wednesday, we're going to be talking more towards an adolescent parent group, but of course, we always encourage parents of all age groups. All of the event information is on our event page. It's also on Montessori Thrive. So if you want your parents to get involved, it's free for them. Basically, how they work is it's very similar to our town halls in the sense of a speaker comes. They're always a Montessorian with years of experience in the classroom. Some of them also are now school leaders or consultants. And they will give a presentation about a topic, just help parents answer some important parenting questions. And towards the end, your parents will have their own opportunity to ask questions and get their questions answered. It's online. It's also recorded for parents who cannot attend the live sessions. I see a comment in the chat here. Oh, Tina, I have another meeting. Well, thank you for joining us, Tina. Let's see what she said here. We send a quarterly newsletter with pictures, info, updates, events to help people feel connected. We also send Valentine cards each year just to share the love. Just recently, we invited alums to share a panel to talk about their experiences in Montessori school. Those are all great ideas. Thank you, Tina. I think I love the open panel idea. That's really wonderful. Also, remember, you can invite student ambassadors or those people from that student community to come to your open houses and talk to parents who are touring at your school and say, wow, like I went to school here and I loved my years here. And, you know, now I'm in the honors program at my high school and I'm getting ready to apply to college and I still love coming back to the school. It's so beautiful and it's full circle like that. And they're inspiring future Montessori families. So things like that are really exciting. But yes, another thing that, like I mentioned earlier, another thing that Thrive focuses on is parent education. So we really look forward to seeing your parents for a month of learning in February. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so I can see you guys and we can maybe chat ideas for building alumni communities. I see Rosalie here. Great topic. Thank you so much for the information. let's see, so much to share with MCS. We plan to outreach to past students. Yes. And reaching out to past students is amazing. I think students, they love coming back to the Montessori school. They really do. I remember at the Montessori I first started working at, which I was a student at myself, I always would see students come back, and they always look so proud to be able to take what they learned in the Montessori classroom and those lessons of life, and come back and share that with future parents or future students. So that's great. So are there any other ideas or tactics that have worked for your communities when it comes to getting in touch with alumni, collecting testimonials from families? I'd love to hear and discuss some ideas that have worked for you. Also, if you operate a successful alumni Facebook group, I'd love to hear your tips on how you keep people engaged in those groups, because it's quite tricky to keep teenagers or college students engaged in a group when they have so much going on and they're on social media looking at all sorts of other things as well.
We don't have I'm sorry, my name's Karen. I'm Hollis Montessori in Southern New Hampshire. We don't have a Facebook group for our alumni. What we have had success with in the past is having people come back and volunteer at school for different office jobs. Actually, believe it or not, they are very interested in that. And we've even had people come in and sub in the classroom. Another alumni has offered tutoring when she's back for the holidays as well.
That's great. I think that's so great. And it's great when they can volunteer at your school, because they already know what Montessori is like. So you don't have to brief them on how it's different from other schools. They already come in and they know. It's great to have people that can step in, whether it's an office job or in the classroom. So that's great. And I know that that's a conversation that we've had several times before in our town halls, is staffing. You really can inspire. It's the easiest group of people to inspire to become Montessorians are people who've lived in the Montessori classroom. All right, Kathy in the chat says, we send our alumni community information about all of our events. We are just in the process of creating an alumni committee. So this is information that's really helpful. I love the idea of an alumni committee. There can be so many benefits to that, getting them involved in your annual fundraisers, having them do big works for your school. All of that is really exciting. That's a great idea. If you have any resources for building alumni communities, please consider sharing them in our Facebook group. I'm not sure if everyone here is a member of our Facebook group, but we love exchanging resources on there as well. And we also always like to post them on Montessori Thrive. I'll share the link to our Facebook group for those of you who aren't on it. We also post about our weekly town halls there as well. So let me share the link for that. Here's our Facebook group. All right, another chat here from comments from Heidi. We've started a volunteer program panel event, inviting them to community events and highlighting alumni news in our weekly update. Our alumni Facebook group hasn't taken off. Someone suggested we might have better results on LinkedIn. This is actually a great idea. LinkedIn, you can also build groups on LinkedIn. So you can also start a private group there. And LinkedIn really is network-based. So it's a great place to offer volunteer opportunities and to see where people are in their career. So you can follow students where they go to university. You can see where they work if it's that far along. So it can be a really great place if you build a LinkedIn account for your school, and you can post opportunities for volunteering, and you can actually send personal invites to certain people to join groups. So if you see a past student, ask them to join your alumni community. A lot of universities do this. Your Montessori can do that as well. So LinkedIn is not a bad idea. Andy says, we have found an alumni LinkedIn group to be another good platform to engage college age alumni and older. Exactly, yeah. They will probably not have a LinkedIn account until they're in college. I feel like a lot of high school students aren't yet at that point. Some of them maybe. There are some really ambitious students out there, but really during college, that's when they start building LinkedIn pages because they're searching for internships at that point. How great would it be for you to offer them volunteer experience that they can put on their resume for an internship? All of those spaces are really great to connect with students and offer them value and strengthen the community. So definitely recommend LinkedIn. If anyone has any questions on how to build a group in LinkedIn, I would love to start a thread on that in the Facebook groups. It's a really great topic. I might even post about it in the Montessori Thrive forum, just because I feel like a lot of Montessoris probably use Facebook more, just because you probably have a Facebook account for your school. But LinkedIn is very underrated for networking in the Montessori space. There's a lot of Montessorians there. Heidi says, honestly, the real challenge has been getting buy-in to allocate time and money. Not everyone sees the value of cultivating alumni relationships when there are tight budgets and immediate concerns. Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's going to be some people who there's going to be certain students who leave and just let's see. Oh, I see what you mean. I think from a marketing perspective, yes, there is a lot of value in it. And I think it's important to stress that if raising money for it is a question, and there's a lot of ways that you can cultivate alumni communities that are free. They will just take time, but they don't cost money to build up. And it is so valuable to have those testimonials and to have student ambassadors who can come and speak to parents. It can really help you sell your school. She says the number one question prospective families ask is, how do kids transition to? And nothing will answer that question better than a student who's gone through the process and can say, actually, when I transitioned from my Montessori classroom, I was ahead of all my classmates. And that automatically gives parents the reassurance that they need to sign up for your school. So there's a huge amount of value in building these communities with alumni. So yeah, go ahead, Camille.
One of the things that I always wanted to do for when I was at the school was to have actually an alumni section on the website with alumni stories. And that could be a draw. I mean, obviously you have to get permission and the buy-in from the alumni student, but also along the same lines, a great marketing tool. So you can direct parents who have these concerns to, they end up being sort of like case studies, but they're alumni stories. And then it might also be an incentive because it's, for the students themselves. It's like, hey, I got written up on this on the website. I could tell my story here. And if you are going to the trouble of putting together alumni stories for a newsletter or something like that, peel that off and put it permanently on your website and have a section that's alumni stories. Because I just think that, like you said, what Camilla said is that nothing answers that question better than an alumni student themselves. And as it might be a little trickier. I don't think it really is, but I would say, if your school just goes through primary, for example, it can get, following up with them once they're into college and beyond, that's a trickier, thread to keep alive. But if you have, not impossible, but if you have, elementary or adolescent or even high, we have some high schools, Montessori high schools too, which obviously it gets a little easier. But again, it's just really interesting. And I guarantee you that prospective parents are going to look at those alumni stories and because they're very curious about where people end up. And having done admissions, I know that's like one of the number one questions. How do they transition? Where do they end up? How do they do? Anyway, and the other thing I wanted, Karen touched upon this since she's at the school that I was at. Tutoring, I think, is also a really great opportunity if you have, depending on what level your school goes up to, but if you have even yeah, I suppose you'd probably need to have at least an elementary program, and then to have older children come back who aren't that much older. I mean, it's kind of just extending the whole Montessori philosophy of having, a child that's just 1 or 2 years older can maybe help somebody with something more effectively than a guide. But we did that quite often with, we had an adolescent program, and then to have, a 11th or 12th grader come back and tutor in math, or often it was math, right? But it could be other topics as well. I think, someone who understands how a child, how a student has learned math, and now they're, tackling maybe tougher problems, can often be a really great teacher. So many high schools will have, they'll almost require volunteer hours. So if you can partner with a local high school, and let them know that, you have opportunities for students to come in and do things like that, is great. And it's obviously you want to have your own alumni coming in. That's the ideal situation. So just a few more ideas that popped into my head.
And that brings me to an idea as well, Camille, because at the school that I was at, we actually had some alumni who went on to high school, and then they really wanted to babysit or nanny, and they would give their contact information to the school. And it kind of really built a nice bridge for alumni to come back and babysit for current families of the Montessori school. And it still kept them in touch with the school, because it was giving them work, it was giving them money, and also parents were really happy because they had babysitters who knew about Montessori and who experienced Montessori lessons and understood the philosophy. So that's just another fun opportunity for just to create value for those students to come back. I see in the chat, Lucy says, we have alumni spotlights on our website and use video interviews from alumni who are current parents in our admission who are current parents in our admissions video. It's a big draw. That's amazing. Having the testimonial videos that's really powerful. People are gonna, it's like when you make a purchase, where do you go? You go to the reviews. When you pick a restaurant, you go to the reviews. When you decide to make any big purchase, you look at the experience. It's the same with schools. When people see that people have had a great experience and have gone on, that's going to be the ultimate selling point. She also said, we created a Google form to collect alumni spotlight info and photos, and then it's just copy and paste onto the website and publish. That's a great way to use automations just like that. Easy. It makes it really easy for students to give information and share their stories, and easy for you to collect and put them on your website. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Lucy. All right. Any other strategies or ideas for building? Karen says, we have also had students come back to school and create artwork for the walls. College and winter break is a good time. That's a good point, Karen. Just really keep track of college breaks in your area, high school breaks as well. That's great. And I feel like they would feel so accomplished being able to come back and leave another part of them at the school. So I think that's really effective. And then to be able to show that to families who are touring the school, say, actually, our alumni came back and they did this for us.
Right. And I know we had one alum come back and for his Eagle Scout project, build something. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was it was like a ball pit or something outside in the outdoor environment. And he was so proud to come back and be able to do that. And he was well into his high school years at that point. So that's another, similar kind of thing, ideas. But if you want to have something, built outside that, anyway, there's all kinds of things I'm sure that people can think of that could use some volunteer assistance.
Adolescents love to do hands-on work. I think Abby was going to say something.
Yeah, I have to head out soon, but something that we've been trying to work on, communicating with alumni. A goal has been creating some sort of like infographics, data about where students have gone to high school, where they've been accepted to college, to kind of go off of that, like answering prospective family questions about where do they go. So that's like been one of our goals in communicating with alumni. So it's like, the balance between creating that community, but also having that data, it has been really helpful to show. So yeah.
That's great. And that I feel like infographics can be really powerful as well. Like if you send out a form saying, did your student apply to college? Did they get into a university? What are they studying? And then you can kind of create charts and have those visuals to show families, and they get really excited over that. I know when people look for colleges, they look for that information. And I think parents are in the mindset now where they look at that really early on. So
yeah, that's what we want for like prospective families, like even right when they come in for a tour, they have those questions. So yes.
Awesome. All right.
Camilla?
Yes, Wally?
This is Wally. The challenge that we've been having is the schools that don't offer middle school or high school. And let's say just primary or maybe primary and elementary. It's very hard to kind of, at that age level, to have a meaningful community established of alumni. Many years ago, when we didn't have our elementary program, just primary program, we had the list of alumni parents that we used to send our monthly school letters to keep them. But we just could not hold interest at that point. And then I think because they get too consumed with, children going to upper level education and all that. So I'm just wondering that typically the meaningful age would be for middle school and high schoolers, or have people had success at lower levels also or not? I'm just curious.
I think it's definitely trickier at a lower level because they've obviously been with you at the very, very early years. They're not yet maybe thinking about volunteer work or other things. The most important thing is to remind parents that they can use your school in the future as a resource and offer value. Say, you know what, your child they're going to need volunteer work. They're going to need recommendation letters in the future. They're going to need all of that. We offer you a space and opportunity to do that. And we will always have our doors open for past alumni here. So I would say, even if you're at an earlier group, offer value. The school that I was at only had a toddler and primary program. And because they were able to offer opportunities for volunteer work, they also offered tutoring opportunities, babysitting opportunities for past alumni. They had students come back, even though they were only at the school at the oldest to age of 7. So there are ways. It's just mostly about creating value. I don't know if anyone else only has those programs as well and has seen success in keeping touch with their students. I'd love to hear if it's worked for them. I know we have a bit of a mixed bag. We have some people here who have elementary programs and middle school programs. So those are a little bit easier because there's a smaller gap between when they're going to be able to offer volunteer work at your school. So
Camilla, in your school, basically you had mostly alumni parents, right? It's not, obviously the kids are too young to participate.
The students, because they were toddler and primary only, we would have parents who were really, really connected with the school. But we made sure that each parent left with a packet and they knew that they could contact their teacher. We always invited all alumni families to fundraisers, so they would come back. And a lot of them, some of them needed recommendation letters for specialized elementary programs. So they already needed recommendation letters just to get just to move on to the next step, even though it was earlier in their academic career. And we said, you know what, if you ever want to volunteer and you need another recommendation letter for high school or college, bring your student back. Another thing that worked is the school that I was at, we allowed students to sometimes come back and be classroom assistants. Let's say if they had a day off at their public school and we were open, we invited them to be like our assistant for the day and offer an extra hand and give lessons to the younger children, and they loved it. So there would be maybe an elementary age child who would come back and be in the primary classroom for just one day, and they loved it. And it was a great way for them to come back into the classroom. Just they're so many of them were they would miss their Montessori classroom so much. They said, yeah, I love my public school, but coming back to Montessori fills my heart. And that managed to kind of build the gap. And then they would come back in high school eventually to do volunteer work. But that was another way that we kind of kept families in touch. Also, I mean, if a parent is really able to leave their child there for a day and know that they're going to be happy to be back in the Montessori classroom and helping other students, they'll definitely be up for that. Tina says, we are a newer school and have a 3-year-old adolescent program, but we are trying new things to keep our younger kids and families connected with us. We send birthday cards to alumni kids, send quarterly newsletters. They're too little for Facebook, but we're happy knowing that we're trying to maintain their relationships. Those are all great ways to fill in that space before they're able to do volunteer work or join a Facebook group. Just little things to keep in touch. That's great. And just remind them, like, you were here, you were a part of our Montessori.
And I would also say, if you can track what age they are after they've left. So let's say you have an elementary program and they've left after 6th grade, first of all, find out maybe where they're going to high school. So you can have that, information for marketing purposes, but also then 4 years from then, send out a letter, a questionnaire. You might only have the parents' address at that point, but, or it can be, an email and do it online kind of thing. But again, check in. Hey, where are you? What are you up to now? Are you planning to start a job or, go to college or whatever, and just have, and then 4 years later, check in again, after they've maybe graduated college, and then find out, where are you living? What are you doing? So these things take a lot of, but that's just kind of like a once a year check-in, but at least maybe they're not really wanting to engage in an alumni community, but you might at least get some feedback about where they are now, so that you have information for that infographic that we were talking about.
And the reality is that you're probably going to have a really special small group of people who actually engage consistently in the community, but really you've already gotten value, even if you get a few testimonials or a few questionnaires filled out. So that's already made your work worth it. Martha says, we have a primary program only. Try to keep up with our families through Facebook group and send them high school graduation cards. That's great. These ideas are all fantastic. Okay, that's great. I love the idea of graduation cards. That's okay. She also says, also we invite alumni parents to join us for our annual kindergarten information meetings. Really effective. That's great. And I think that and this is great for Wally, because you mentioned you only have that primary and younger age group. Parents, they're going to be the ones who at that point are able to give you testimonials at that point. So keep in touch with them, and you can use them as ambassadors. Now, if you have an adolescent program, it's great to be able to use old students as ambassadors, but having those parents is just as effective, and having them share, oh yeah, my child, they finished the kindergarten program, the 3-year cycle, and now they're in 1st grade and they're advanced and they've transitioned really easily into the school, and that will put a lot of prospective parents at ease. So it's great to have them as well. Thank you, Martha. All right. I really enjoyed hearing some of your ideas. I think they're really great. There's a lot of ways to keep in touch with students. I think birthday cards are great. Graduation cards are great. Offering tutoring, things like that are all really beneficial. All right. If we don't have anything else, we're wrapping up 5 minutes early. I don't want to keep you guys on if you don't have any more questions. If you do, you can always comment in the forum or in our Facebook group that I linked earlier. I hope to see your your parent communities next week for our parenting series. We're so excited for it. I hope you'll have a great week. Next week, our topic is going to be having difficult, it's focused on having difficult conversations with staff and families. And I think based on some of our previous town halls, some of you guys have had some tricky ones with COVID and some pushback on certain things. So I think it'll be good to hear your experiences with that. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you all for joining our town hall and sharing your great ideas with us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.